Welcome to Pokemon Infinitely Massive. Infinite Fusion, the fan-made game with over 170,000 possible combinations, as well as over 70,000 custom sprites made by the community. In this game, you're able to fuse any two Pokemon to create awesome, terrifying, and amazing different creatures. By popular demand, today we're going to be taking on this challenge by beating the game in hard mode using only buff or masculine Pokemon. So don't go anywhere, as you might miss some of the coolest fusions we've made yet on the channel. Also, at the end of the video, comment your favorite fusion from the run and what type of run you'd like to see next. To start our run, we named ourselves Arnold for obvious reasons. We then set everything to randomized at max settings and began the game. Our rival's name obviously had to be Sylvester, and it was time to pick our starters. Funny enough, two of the starters ended up being Poliwhirls, and as Alakazam is definitely not a buff or masculine Pokemon, we decided to just grab one of them instead, which meant we lost our first fight against the rival, but that doesn't matter. This is only the beginning. Professor Oak asked us to run an errand for him, so we ran all the way to the next town over, grabbed his satchel, and ran all the way back. The gains on this run have already begun. Once our task was completed, Oak gave us the Pokédex as well as some Pokeballs to begin our journey. As we explored the area searching for our first Pokemon to add to the team, we caught a bunch of other Pokemon to potentially fuse later. I should explain that in this run, we're going to be using any Pokemon that I determine fit within the definitions of manly, masculine, or buff. Now, this could be just about any fighting type Pokemon, but I decided to narrow it down to a handful for this run, as you'll see in the video. Finally, I found a Machop and added it to our team so the real run could begin. We also grabbed ourselves this Ursaring because what's more manly than a bear? And with these two on the team, it was time for some fusions. Ursaring and Tauros looked kind of funny, so we tried out Arcanine with no luck, as it still looked kind of goofy. Sandslash somehow made it look like this evil honey badger creature, but it wasn't quite what we were looking for. Kabutops then had this dual swords, which was cool, but still not quite as cool as this Magmortar Ursaring fusion, creating this flaming Gatling gun bear. We tried fusing Machoke with Lairon and ended up looking like a buff office worker, and Combustion looked good, but I thought this Piloswine looked absolutely hilarious. Though in the end, we ended up going with Machoke and Charmander, as this was both adorable, funny, and super buff. With a team now made, it was time to face the first gym leader, Brock, who was apparently randomized into a water-type gym leader, after we just made two fire-type fusions. So we left the gym and re-randomized to something easier to defeat. Absolutely not. What do you think this is, a Weenie Hut Junior run? Get back in there and show them what you've got. Also, subscribe for Baby Bulk. I think so too, little man, but only if you hit the button. You know, whoever that guy was is right. So we went back into the gym to face off against Brock and our two fire-type Pokemon. His Arbok fusion was first, and luckily Gunner was able to easily take it out with Slash. Unfortunately, his next Pokemon was a Dialga fusion that made quick work of us with Water Gun. It was then up to Baby Bulk to take on this massive obstacle in our way. Who would move, the rock or the hard place? Luckily, for some reason, instead of going for Water Gun twice, Brock decided to go for Electro Ball, and Baby Bulk was able to hang on with barely any HP, using Dual Chop to finish it off and winning us the battle. With Brock now defeated and our first gym badge in hand, it was time to catch more Pokemon and make more fusions. We caught a Hitmonchan and decided to fuse it with this Duskull, which looked super cool and spooky, and this Tauros looked absolutely amazing, always ready to fight. I also loved how Tentacool ended up getting boxing gloves on his little tentacles, but we ended up going with this Heracross fusion instead and named him Hero. With Hero now added to the team, we pushed forward, battling through some trainers and facing off against Pokemon like this Metal Pinscher fusion and this Genesect Octillery fusion that looked like a high-tech cannon tank thing. Eventually, we ran into a nurse helping a trainer and his injured Pokemon outside a cave, and after asking what had happened, we were told that some goons had stolen and injured a bunch of Pokemon in the cave ahead. Brock showed up to help out the trainers, and we headed in to show these grunts who's boss. It turns out to be Team Rocket, who's messing around in the cave due to the Moonstones and their scientific specific properties. On our way to find the leader of this whole mess, Baby Bulk ended up evolving, which meant we needed to change his name to just Bulk. We blasted our way through the remaining grunts in the cave, only to stumble upon their leader running some sort of experiment with a scientist he'd captured involving 3 Pokemon, trying to fuse them instead of just 2. As we went in to interrupt them, the machine malfunctioned and they gathered up the moonstones quickly and fled the scene. With nothing left to do, we continued through the cave until it spat us out next to Cerulean City. Coincidentally, this is where the next gym was, so I decided to take a look around before going in to face the gym and happened to run into Sylvester, who wanted to challenge us to a battle. Gunner easily took out his first Pokemon with Slash, as well as his next bug type. Sylvester then sent out Star Kazam, who just barely was able to be taken out by Hero's Mach Punch. Unfortunately, Hero then fell to their starter's Psybeam, which only left Bulk to face off against the rest of his team. Somehow, Bulk survived on 3 HP after a body slam and managed to land a cross chop, winning the battle. Bulk is amazing at winning close calls. Having beaten Sylvester, our confidence was high, so we headed straight for Misty's gym, which was now a grass-type gym. Perfect. We ran in to face her and unfortunately ran into some technical difficulties, but as you can imagine, our team had no issues with her grass-type fusions. Anyways, we now had our second gym badge, so we went on to catch more Pokemon and make more fusions. Primeape and Ambipom gained a pair of fists on its rear, and Kingler's massive claw became an equally massive fist. Primeape and Tauros looked super goofy, but reversed also looked goofy, but strong, so I named him Richard and added him to the team. Macargo and Machoke made Heat Blast from Ben 10, but I decided to fuse Machoke with Steelix instead, as it made Diamond Head also from Ben 10. Look at this Chad. Ursaring and Marowak was a pretty cool bony sprite, and Fortress made this armored cannon bear. Though Macargo and Ursaring surprised me, and really, what's more manly than this? If you know, you know. Comment below the episode number and nothing else. Hitmonchan and Kingler was decent, and Magneton became this trippy businessman, but I absolutely had to keep this Lapras fusion. And of course I named it Rocky, cause you know, rock hands. Anyways, with this team, we headed south to get our third gym badge. Funny enough, we fought another Hitmonlee fusion on the way and finally made it to Vermilion City, where we found a big ship docked at the port. It was then that I realized I forgot to keep heading north after our battle with Sylvester, so we went back up, helped out Bill, received his ticket for the SS Anne as a reward, and finally boarded the ship. After fighting some guests and crew members, and luckily having swagger on Richard, which allowed us to defeat the Shedinja fusion, we finally found the captain's key. This allowed us to learn Cut from the captain of the boat. On our way there, we ran into Sylvester though once again. His first Pokemon was a Piloswine Gardevoir fusion, which fell quickly to Ace's Incinerate. He then quickly fell to Duo Lord. Rocky then got revenge and was unfortunately knocked out by their ugly starter fusion. Diamond Head was able to come in and finish him off and suddenly was faced with the god of cuteness, Giraret. Luckily, after some bulk ups, the battle was quickly wrapped up and Sylvester left. With the HM cut from the captain, we were able to get to Surge's fairy-type gym and then spend ages rummaging through the trash bins looking for those dumb buttons. Eventually, we found them and it was finally time for the third gym fight. The first battle didn't go very well for us, as his first Pokemon, Flavoir, wiped our team out easily with Draining Kiss. But I wouldn't change a thing. I knew we could defeat him. I was worried as our next battle started when his Flavoir started Calm Minding, but luckily we had Clear Smog and we were able to burn it and take it down with Ace after just fainting. Rocky then made quick work of his Diglett fusion, but was knocked out by his ghostly Azumarill. Luckily, before fainting, Rocky got off a Perish song, which meant all Diamond Head had to do was survive. And with Bulk Up, that's what we did. Finally, we won our third gym badge, which meant more Pokemon and more fusions. I caught a Hitmonlee and fused it with Infernape to make this amazing Kung Fu master. And Golurk, when fused with Slacking, made, hey, this one looks familiar. I tried out some more Slacking fusions since gorillas definitely equal masculine. And while Rhyperior was decent, Tentacruel became Cthulhu, and Arcanine, yeah, that's what it looks like. I decided to go with Quagsire because he's still an ape and this guy was too goofy to leave behind. His name shall be Bob. From there, we headed back to Cerulean City, then east, battling some awesome and disturbing fusions. I see that you have not hit the subscribe button yet. Come on,
Do it!
We also fought this amazing Xatu Reshiram fusion after traveling through a cave. I can't imagine flames shooting from your eyes is comfortable. Anyways, we made it to Lavender Town, and after looking around, we went to explore the Pokemon Tower, where Sylvester was doing stair climbs. Time for another battle. Rocky made quick work of his Absol fusion with Bullet Punch, and Flavorb quickly fell to Fire Punch. Cordelia then managed to survive in red and took down Rocky with Mega Drain. Unfortunately for Sylvester, Ace was ready in the back to take it down before falling to Bubble Beam, his greatest weakness. Water. Well, other than the lava coming out of his chest. Bob then came in, finished cleaning up the rest of the battle, and we won. After our battle, we witnessed Old Man Fuji being taken captive to the top of the tower by Team Rocket. Unfortunately, we couldn't help him without a Sylph Scope due to the ghosts, so we headed to the nearest town for help. Once we arrived in Celadon, I decided to take a look around, and eventually we found this Pokemon all alone on the top of a building. This lady appeared and asked us if we would take it on a walk for her. Walk? Why walk when we can run? After we had fully exhausted the Pokemon, we returned it to its owner and went on to find the gym leader of the town, Erika. When she found out why we were here, she rushed into the sewers where Team Rocket was apparently hiding. We chased after her, beat up a bunch of grunts, and eventually found Giovanni. He had already defeated Erika, so it was time for my manly team to show her what we could do. Giovanni led a Metapod fusion, so we used the opportunity to bulk up Diamond Head a bunch of times before absolutely demolishing it with Double Edge. Unfortunately, we then fainted to a brine from Girafarig, so Bob had to come in and take revenge. Giovanni's final Pokemon, Weavy, easily fell to chip away, and he fled, leaving behind just what we needed, a Sylph Scope. I decided that before we headed back, we would quickly earn our gym badge here, so we headed into Erika's electric-type gym. Quickly was definitely the wrong word, though. Our first battle did not go well, as this eyeball just about stalled out Diamond Head, then Volcazone managed to take out Ace. Her final Pokemon, Rochu, destroyed Richard, and again we lost. Finally, I decided to bulk up twice with Richard, barely living 2 discharges on 1 HP. Then we got lucky and managed to deal massive damage to her Volcarona fusion before fainting. Rocky then came in and did what it does best, punch. We then managed to land a Sing, which lasted so many turns that we burned out all of her Hyper Potions before fainting. Then Ace finished her off with a burn and some Infernos. New badge, new fusion time. Hitmonlee and Electivire made a fusion you definitely wouldn't want to get into a fight with. I wasn't the biggest fan of this Crocodile's hands, and for Alligator, well, it became a boxing alligator. Hitmonlee and Machoke made this, and I hated it. And Aggron became this mech knight wielding an Aggron head axe. Mamoswine became this burlier fusion of the Piloswine fusion from earlier, and Snorlax finally hit his cut. This bulk was good. Reversing it looked a little funny, kind of like a sumo wrestler, but I ended up using this flaming Machoke instead because it was awesome. Fire and muscles, what more do you need? I also fused Primeape with Aegislash, and for some reason it made this barbell, so you know that was added to the team. Bear plus bear equals bigger bear, which also equals needing to be on the team. I then tried out a few Machamp fusions as one of our Machokes had evolved. Lucario looked great and had amazing pants. Macargo looked like he was the one that gave Ace his bellyache, and Heracross had that bling on from all his MMA wins. Cofagrigus looked like a swole pharaoh. Though, even with all of these awesome fusions, I decided to keep this Regigigas fusion. This thing is Bulk City. With our new team formed, Bob, Bruce, Moto, which means hot, Heavy, Brother Bear, and Zeus, we made our new team and a manly squad. Back at the Pokemon Tower, our squad had no issues blasting through the trainers and ghosts, and after defeating this gorgeous Dragonair fusion, we had finally made it to the top where Mr. Fuji was. As it turns out, Mr. Fuji lifted in his prime, and so he didn't need our help at all. But as a gift for our thoughtfulness, he gave us a flute and sent us on our way. With no further leads on Team Rocket, we headed south to get more gym badges. Koga's gym was full of ghost-type Pokemon, but I wasn't worried with the team of behemoths I now had with me. And Bob. His first Pokemon, Kofafisk, unfortunately knocked out Moto with Shadow Ball, but Bob then came in for revenge and knocked it out with Mud Bomb without taking any damage. His next Pokemon almost knocked us out, but because of accuracy drops, Bob managed to knock it out as well before falling to Dark Pulse. Heavy then knocked out her Cotton Ball with Assurance, and her final Pokemon, a vending machine made out of Celebi, couldn't hit Brother Bear, so we whittled it down, winning our fight and our 5th gym badge. Without wasting a second, I headed to Saffron City, hearing that it was a bustling town with a fighting dojo we could train in. Unfortunately, when we arrived, we found that Team Rocket had taken over the entire city, so there was only one thing we could do. We headed into Silphco, where it seemed they were hiding out. After rescuing a bunch of people and absolutely humiliating a bunch of grunts and their goofy fusions, we made our way to the top, where Sylvester was waiting for us. But a man never denies another man's test of strength. Mischievous didn't stand a chance against Brother Bear, but his Vaporeon Charmander landed a Hydro Pump, knocking us out. Heavy quickly defeated it with close combat, and Zeus missed his Dizzy Punch and got knocked out by a Ralt Spiritomb fusion. Moto set up a bulk up and barely lived on 9 HP before flame wheeling and submissioning his next 2 Pokemon and knocked himself out. Bob then got taken out by a Future Sight, which meant it was a 1v1. Luckily, Bruce came in clutch, hitting his Sky Uppercut and then finishing off the battle with Fire Punch. Having proven ourselves, Sylvester joined us to take on Giovanni. Giovanni's plan was to get Silphco to make him a Master Ball and use it in his evil plan. Starting the battle, we sent in Moto alongside our rivals Gardevoir Whimsicott fusion. Unfortunately, both of his Pokemon doubled into our side just about the entire battle, knocking out Moto. Bob was the next one to fall as they continued to double my side, but then they switched over to fighting my rival for a moment, so we sent in Heavy. Heavy set up a bunch of sword stances, maxing out his attack before going all in with close combats. Unfortunately, it was knocked out by an Ice Beam, and our rival was running low on Pokemon. It was time for Zeus to make up for fainting earlier, so with the several cross chops, we finished off Giovanni's last few Pokemon and defeated him. He claimed they had gotten all that they needed before disappearing with his team, and with that, Silphco and Saffron City had been saved. Now it was time to face the next gym and their Ice-type Pokemon. Moto came in against their Kyurem fusion, and luckily with a couple dual chops, we had no trouble knocking it out before falling to their Sneasel fusion. Bruce then came in and wreaked havoc on her team using Fire Punch, knocking out her next 2 Pokemon. Her final Pokemon was another Kyurem fusion that stood no chance to a Sky Uppercut, easily winning us our 6th gym badge. That was by far the easiest gym we had faced yet. We were on a roll, so we pressed on to Cinnabar Island to get our 7th badge. While looking around the island, we witnessed Team Rocket stealing a boat from the harbor and headed off to Mount Ember. Apparently, this was where the entire big bad plan was going down, so we had our next objective. But since we were already here, I wanted to grab a badge from Blaine before heading off to finish the big bad guys. Blaine was using Poison-type Pokemon, and his first Pokemon looked an awful lot like the new Pokemon Toadschool from Scarlet and Violet. Blaine switched out, and Bob took out his next Pokemon Togadrill before barely falling to a moth with a reindeer face. Some of these fusions are definitely uncanny, and I don't like them. Heavy then came in and finished it off with close combat as well as Toadschool looking Pokemon before getting knocked out by this Muck Electrode fusion. We then sent in Bruce to see if it'd be able to finish it off, but for some reason, Blaine decided to cut the battle short by using Explosion, and since we still had a Pokemon left, we won the battle by default. The gym leaders in this region really need to work on their strategy, but nonetheless, we finally had our 7th gym badge, which meant it was time to go on to take Giovanni and his goons once and for all. But first, some fusions. Slacking and Machamp was absolutely jacked, and Crocodile was a master of leg day. Haxorus Machamp was an absolutely amazing fusion, and the colors somehow worked perfectly together. Machamp and Infernape became this Aztec god, and Blaziken and Hitmonchan became one of my favorite fusions, a boxer with a phenomenal hairdo. Golem and Machoke made the Boulder, and Rampardos became this beefcake ready to play some football. Aggron mixed with Machamp became an absolute unit, and so with that, we had our awesome fusions for a new team. Kenny, Bruce, Gary, the Boulder, Spike, and Johnny. If you know all those fighters and masculine references, comment them down below. We quickly made our way to Giovanni and Mount Ember where his plan was unfolding. It turns out he had captured all 3 legendary birds and was attempting to fuse them into the triple fusion named ZapMolCuno. For those of you who are new to the game, ZapMolCuno is a 3-headed bird with 3 health bars, which means it gets to attack 3 times every turn, so unless you outspeed it, you have to survive an attack from all 3 heads, Zapdos, Moltres, and Articuno before you get to attack. This battle is brutal. Our first attempt at beating this monstrosity did not go well, as we only managed to knock out 1 of the 3 heads before getting completely swept. But with this loss, I developed a plan. Bruce was insanely fast and powerful, so we led them and used Fire Punch to one-shot the Articuno head first turn, and then somehow we survived a Drill Peck. Unfortunately, Zapdos used Tailwind, so it was unlikely we'd outspeed now. Bruce went down, and since we weren't outspeeding, I sent in Gary to stall a turn. Kenny then came in, and because Zapdos didn't attack, we managed to get off a dual chop before fainting. Spike then came in, and we went for a Zen Headbutt flinch, but we didn't need it, as Zapdos set up more screens. Their Tailwind had petered out, so we outsped and managed to knock out the Zapdos before fainting. Our final member then came in to clean up. The Boulder feels conflicted about fighting a pretty 3-headed bird. The Boulder is over his conflicted feelings and will crush you with a landslide. And with that, we had beaten Giovanni and his master plan. After defeating the 3-headed bird, they split and went their separate ways. Giovanni, throwing a fit in defeat, stormed off, leaving his team behind as they rushed to gather their equipment. With Team Rocket defeated, we headed back to get our final gym badge. In this game, Giovanni is the final gym leader, and somehow he got randomized back into his normal typing, so he was going to be using ground-type Pokemon. I thought that he'd be easy to defeat with the team that we had used to defeat the 3-headed bird, but unfortunately, Giovanni wasn't going down without a fight. He defeated us again and again and again. There's a reason ground-type Pokemon are some of my favorite. They are just too darn powerful. Finally, after something like 20 attempts, our luck turned around. Kenny was able to defeat his Rhyperior fusion using 2 cross chops, and then with 1 blow knocked out his ace, Glycitar. We almost had a clean sweep, but his Go-Champ hung on with 1 HP and landed a dynamic punch due to our ability No Guard. Luckily, Bruce was able to take it out with Sky Uppercut as well as Rylax, which stood no chance against Bruce's boxing fists. His final Pokemon, Dugtrio Electabuzz fusion, almost finished us off with Bulldoze, but Bruce hung on and finished the battle, landing another Sky Uppercut. This battle was just one high damage roll after another, and I'm definitely not complaining as we won our final gym badge. With our final badge in hand, we had no time to waste as we headed off to face the Elite Four to become champion of the region. Of course, Sylvester had to challenge us on our way for yet another battle. The Boulder had no issues knocking out his first fusion, Pidgeot Nidoking, but then fell to a furry ball of eggs? Ugh. I'm not sure why I chose those words to describe it, but look at it. Luckily, Bruce was able to fire punch it off our screen and then was taken out by this electric Gyarados fusion. We sent in Kenny thinking it would be a good matchup, but completely forgot about Hurricane in the rain, and he was quickly knocked out after hitting himself in confusion. It was then time for Johnny to showcase his amazing skills by using Low Kick to knock out the Gyarados as well as his Rhyhorn fusion. Gary then finished off the battle using Chip Away and Punishment on his final 2 Alakazam fusions. Now, to not bore you with Victory Road and all the lame fusions that we saw there, we'll skip right to creating our team for the Elite Four. Hitmonchan and Delibird made this amazing fusion reference, so comment below if you know its name, and Lugia looked like it was ready to fight. Look at those massive hands. Though I absolutely fell in love with this Shedinja Hitmonchan fusion, as it looked like it was using its spirit to fight for it after it had been defeated. This is the will of a warrior. Bisharp looked like an armored samurai, and Pikachu became this wrestler form, but bigger and buffer. Raichu also looked like an even cooler version of the Pikachu wrestler, and Dugtrio Machamp gave us a view of what's really under the soil, and I absolutely loved it. Moltres looked like it was something out of an anime like a protagonist, and Ampharos is definitely what we should have named Zeus. This Lugia fusion with Machamp had even more hands and looked like it had trained for centuries. I didn't expect much from Machamp and Wailord, but this guy definitely looks like he'd be a hero from the My Hero Academia anime, and this Giratina fusion looks like it would be the ultimate villain. Machoke and Tauros made this absolutely insane buff bull looking creature, and Wobbuffet looked like it was ready to punch back and not just be punched. Houndoom and Machoke made the buff meme, which I thought was fantastic, but the guys we truly added to the team were Machamp and Blaziken, which made this amazing buff looking 4-armed Blaziken. Definitely one of the coolest fusions of the run so far. Machamp and Deoxys also made this super cool alien looking creature with ginormous fists, so we know you had to add him. Machoke had a tendency to make things just insanely buff, like this Palkia, who is just all upper body, and I definitely couldn't leave out these two buff fusions, Charizard and Swole Venusaur. It's unfortunate that Blastoise didn't have a buff fusion. Here's a quick recap of the team and their movesets. We have Blaziken Machamp fusion called Forearms. I named the Deoxys Machamp fusion Droll. Palkia and Machoke was named Bravo. We had Escanor the Charizard, and Hulk the Venusaur, and of course, Rock Lee. Comment down below if you know where each of these names came from. Some of them are obvious, some of them are less so. With that, it was time to finally face off against the Elite Four with our team of elite, buff, masculine, Chad-like Pokemon. Lorelei this time was somehow still using Ice-type Pokemon, and I was worried the randomizer was broken since Giovanni was also using ground types. Luckily, it's not the case, as she just happened to be randomized into Ice types. Forearms absolutely demolished her Articuno Rayquaza fusion with Blaze Kick, but was quickly taken out by this Krabby's Crab Hammer. Bravo then came in and cleaned up using Earth Power, and then was sadly defeated by this gift-wrapped sword. Escanor finished it off with Heat Wave, and after doing decent damage to her Glaceon fusion, she switched out into Zorua that got cross-chopped to oblivion. Escanor then fell, but the battle was over as we sent in Hulk, who quickly was knocked out. Don't ask me why I sent out a grass type against an ice type using Blizzard, but luckily Rock Lee had Bullet Punch and we finished off the first battle. The second battle against Bruno was incredibly easy as we used Bulk Up with Droll and then Zen Headbutted and Dynamic Punched our way through the first couple Pokemon. Then we were finally taken out by his final Bidoof fusion. Hulk got his redemption by taking it out with Petal Dance, and we won the second Elite Four battle in literal seconds. Agatha had Steel-type Pokemon and they were up next. Rocky's close combat finished off her Ferroseed fusion quickly, and then Escanor came in to destroy her amazing looking Skarmory Kabutops fusion with Heat Wave. Unfortunately, she heal stalled and knocked him out, only for Forearms to come in and use Blaze Kick to destroy this and the next Pokemon. We then sent out Droll and knocked out her Clefable fusion. We tried to disrespectfully use Bulk Up enough times to easily knock out her amazing Aegislash Rampardos fusion, and our Beefcakes were just too strong for this Elite Four. Lance was using Fire types, and luckily we let our Palkia fusion Bravo. With the ability No Guard, we landed every single one of our Hydro Pumps, defeating his Cyndaquil fusion, and then used Earth Power to finish off his Charmander. Lance then sent out a Blaziken Magmortar fusion, and we once again tried to bulk up on it and use Zen Headbutt to knock it out. Rock Lee then came in and used Close Combat on a Charmeleon fusion, and he was out of healing items. His final Pokemon hit the field, a Steelix armored Charizard. This thing looked amazing. Unfortunately for it, Forearms knew high jump kick and landed it easily, defeating this amazing looking Charizard fusion. It's really too bad that cool doesn't always equal strong. Finally, it was time to face off against our rival for the final time and claim the title of champion. Unfortunately, his team was incredibly overleveled compared to ours, so we lost quite a few times until we were closer to his level. On our 6th attempt at defeating him, we sent in Droll to use Bulk Up a few times to knock out his Alakazam Charizard fusion with Zen Headbutt. Unfortunately, it didn't quite do the trick and he was knocked out by Flamethrower. Bravo then came in and finished off with Hydro Pump. His next Pokemon was his ace and his starter, a Politoed Alakazam. It was incredibly annoying as he continued to heal it, and eventually a Future Sight took out Bravo. We then sent in Hulk and used Petal Dance to finally defeat it. Sylvester's next Pokemon was this gorgeous Glaceon Melodic fusion that for some reason didn't end up attacking us, so we managed to knock it out with Petal Dance as well. Hulk is really making up for that first battle. Sylvester then sent out a Hydreigon Moltres fusion that quickly knocked out Hulk, but was no match for Forearms high jump kick. I was a little worried when I saw a Blissey Eevee fusion come out, as I assumed it would be pretty thick, but I forgot it was extremely weak to fighting type moves, so a close combat from Rocky quickly knocked it out. His final Pokemon, a Jinx crawling out of a TV, which is kind of a terrifying fusion, then fell to Escanor, winning the battle, finally defeating Pokemon Infinite Fusion using buff, manly, and masculine Pokemon. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you subscribe, leave a comment down below about your favorite fusion, and comment what kind of run you would like to see next. And in the meantime, I'll see you later. Peace.